Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and one of the first creators we had on our show was Stephen Murphy of Mormonism with the Murph. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I'm honored to be back a second time. Thank you, Gene.
We want to catch up and see, how things have been going. Are you experiencing a steady growth in subscribers and things like that?
Yeah, I think reasonably steady. It probably grows at maybe a rate of like 150 to 200 a month. Some months a little bit more, some months less, but it's been slow but steady. It's going in the right direction.
I know when I look at YouTube videos to like how to increase your viewers or something like that, they talk about how, you want to reproduce content that are getting a lot of views. And so have you ever tried to do stuff like that? Where like, oh, that was a hot topic, so let's do another show on it.
Yeah, I did one, on those gold plates that were supposedly found. I did one on that because that was quite a hot topic, because the Stick of Joseph did a video, and then Mormon book reviews, and I think Mormon stories as well, and Scripture Central. And I just thought, like, hey, I could maybe do a video. I basically just talked about like what everyone else has said so far, and it did decent. It seemed like it was worth doing because it was a hot topic. So I think there's definitely value to doing that.
On one hand, you can have a hot topic, and the other hand, you can have maybe less hot of a topic, but a really interesting guest, like to you in particular. Did you have a really interesting guest to you the last 4 or 5 months that stands out?
I'm trying to think. Last 4 or 5 months. I'm trying to think what I've done.
Because we don't want to disrespect all the other guests. Right?
No,
they were all fascinating in their own right. But
yeah, no, exactly.
For you personally,
I think when you interviewed me last, was it like around Halloween?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Gene, one of the most interesting interviews I've had recently was with William Davis on the Book of Mormon. So he wrote the book Visions in a Seer Stone. And I wouldn't really say he's a critic, but he tries to provide maybe either a naturalistic theory, but also one that believers could still use, but still believing that it's a translation of an ancient text. But I thought it was a really good interview. He's a good scholar. We went quite in depth on his theory and his views, and then he responded to maybe some apologetics or some criticisms of his theory as well. So he was a really good guest because I wanted to have him on for about a year and a half. And sometimes, it might just take a little bit longer to get a certain person. You just have to wait for the right time.
He talks about like the performative aspect of orating a book, right? And he relates an oral performance, and he relates that to how Methodist preachers may have given sermons.
Yeah, laying down heads, having sort of like a rough skeleton outline that then they were expanding upon. So his theory was not that Joseph Smith had the Book of Mormon memorized, but also that he wasn't just making up on the fly, but the little outline. So not the chapter headings for each individual chapter, but before like each book or a different part of the narrative in the Book of Mormon, where it's like, Lehi and his family depart from Jerusalem. Jerusalem's going to be destroyed. They go into the wilderness. He says that he believes that is a outline that Joseph Smith likely had in his head, similar to a Methodist preacher. This was a method for how he was able to orally dictate the Book of Mormon.
And I think,
in a nutshell,
Joseph Smith's mother in her book,
Lucy Mack
Smith, she said, I believe that he would entertain the family as a 14-year-old with stories of from the Book of Mormon, from the people that the population of North America, or whatever, however saying it. So it obviously, and she said, I think that he could describe like their clothing and their buildings and the things that they did, their lifestyle. That would lead us to believe. And I remember in, I think, Institute, not seminary, that the instructor talked about how Joseph had visitations with people, and would probably learn things, right? And so that's how you could matches the faithful perspective, where line upon line, Joseph was learning all these things. Because I remember somebody saying that, it seems a little strange that the Native Americans, the Lamanites or the Nephites, wouldn't really talk in Old English, right? Or Bible English.
Right.
And neither did Joseph or the people around him. but I grew up learning that was just how Joseph felt that would be the best style that would interest the most people or have them understand or match it to what they learn in the Bible, so that they would go together.
Definitely King James English was the scriptural language of the day, and you would find other books that were written in King James Bible language as well. So I think for people to have received and accepted it as scripture, that's sort of the language it was in. And whether or not you want to believe Joseph was the author or translator, I don't believe that the Nephites were speaking or writing in King James English, neither the New Testament writings, but this is the King James translators, their translation, and that Joseph was utilizing a lot of that language in his translation or in his dictation, whichever view you want to take.
That's right. So William Davis gives a good explanation of his theory.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to go back and see your episode, I'll include it in the links in the description below. People can see what William Davis said about his critics. And so that'll be great to see. What has been like a really popular video lately that's lit things on fire?
I don't know if I've had I don't think I've had one since last year that's done really super well. I did one on top 10 evidences for the Book of Mormon. That one did kind of well. And I did an interview with Jasmine Rapley about temples, temple liturgy, masonry, and comparisons to ancient temple rituals or the coronation ceremony of monarchs or priestly initiation in the Old Testament with the temple endowment. I think it got over 4,000 views, so it did kind of well. So yeah, those are the standout ones. I had an interview with Jonathan Neville as well about the Book of Mormon taking place in the heartland of North America, and we talked about sort of his arguments and evidence for that, and then criticisms going against. One of the two parts I think got over 6,500 views, I think. So there's been some decent episodes in the past 6 months or so.
And so do you just click the button that makes it public, or do you do premieres, or are you trying to experiment with things?
So I normally like to do premieres because it lets people know in advance that this is when it's going to show.
Right.
I do like people participating in the live comments. The downside is I don't know why YouTube has been doing this. I don't know if other people have had the same problem. I put up messages about this, posts on Facebook. For some reason, YouTube deletes all of my views from a premiere. So if for example, my last one with Jacob Hansen that we did responding to whether or not Joseph practiced polygamy, I had at one point 45 or 50 people watching live because I checked it. But then as soon as the premiere ended, I had 0 views. So for some reason, YouTube is deleting all of my views during a premiere. So I don't know what that's about. So it's putting me off wanting to premiere all the episodes because.
So you're seeing 0 views even in your what do they call it, the analytics?
Yeah, it shows. So when the video ends, it's just no views, and then the views start after the premiere ends. Even though
I heard
40, 50 people watching live.
You don't change the title or anything, do you?
No.
After the premiere?
No.
Yeah, because I did that once. I changed the title of the show, and so from that point forward, the show below the display would just say 400 views, but if I click on analytics, it would say 532 views. So I had changed it after 130 views. I'd changed the title a little bit. And so that's what my experience is. I still got credit for it in the analytics, but it wouldn't display those views. So I don't know.
I might need to double check the analytics.
Yeah.
And see what's going on. But yeah, so most of the time I like to premiere, especially if it's an interview. I think premieres are quite good. And people enjoy participating in the live chat as well.
Yeah.
And I enjoy reading through some of the comments as well, but I don't like all the views being deleted because we talked about this off air that the performance of a video, that's not all about but you do want a video to do quite well to reach more people. And the performance of a video really matters within, I think, the first 2 or 3 hours, how it does. If it doesn't do very well, then it's likely not going to take off.
And it seems like when I look at the analytics and I see the length of time people staying, usually goes down to 10% or 15% watch all the way to the end. And I think that's just people that they're done with their drive, right? And so they click off, and then the next day they might restart and watch to the end, but YouTube doesn't like count that.
Yeah, that's true. Because if it's like a 2 or 3 hour podcast, it's very unlikely that someone will be able to sit through and watch the entire thing in one sitting, unless you've got like nothing to do. But yeah, normally it's when you're driving or when you're doing the dishes, or for me, it's like when I'm at the gym, but you only have a certain length of time. But it's not that you don't like the video, it's that I'm going to come back to and watch it later.
Do you try to release at the same time of the day?
Normally, yeah. Normally, I was trying to release twice a week on a Thursday and a Sunday, but some weeks that's not possible.
And
So I normally try to do the same time.
Most of my, viewers are in America. Is that the same with you? I guess because there's more Mormons in America.
Yeah. I think it's mainly America.
And so you don't want to release it at midnight in USA time anywhere.
No, definitely not. No, I normally release it at around like 8 p.m. UK time. So I think that's getting to around like 1 p.m.
Okay.
Your time in Utah, at least. So
and do you have like a during the week show and then a weekend show?
Yeah, it depends on the week. I normally try to release something on a Thursday evening. Normally, if I can, sometimes a Sunday evening as well. It's been increasingly more difficult since, moving here to England, working a full-time job. I've got callings, and it's just not easy to be able to be creating a lot of content in a week as well. And sometimes it's not necessarily bad because there's a lot of content being produced, and it's quality over quantity as well sometimes.
Do you notice one day's better than the other?
Actually, yeah. Typically, my Thursday seems to perform better than my Sunday for
and I don't know if more people are available or if just the algorithm, puts it as a suggestion more on at those times. What's the most live viewers have you had on a show at one time, you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the episode I did with Dan Peterson, that it's the one that got the most views. I think I remember maybe like 80 people watching it live, which is a lot more than what I would usually get. Like usually I wouldn't get more than 50 watching a live video. So that one, was quite high.
And in my experience, it seems like there's always like the same 5 or 10 people commenting in the chat. And every now and then there's a new person, and some people really like it. And it's real. Sometimes the chat is more engaging than the show. Sometimes, even when I'm watching other popular shows.
I think
it's like a family. Everybody says hi to each other.
Yeah. No, it can be fun reading through some of the messages and seeing people like bickering with each other as well. It can be quite funny as well.
And do you ever comment in the chat like, oh, I should have asked this question, or I thought this was really interesting, or do people ask you to give any more feedback when in the chat?
Occasionally, but I don't tend to engage that much with the chat because normally I probably should. Normally I don't watch the video whenever it's premiering live. But sometimes I'll check in and just have a look at it. And if someone's asking a specific question related to me, then I might try to respond to it. But normally I just let them comment.
Yeah, I normally get 25 messages in the chat, but 20 of them are from me. They're from me.
Right.
Usually I say, like and subscribe, or, like, welcome to the show. And then I say, oh, I goofed up there. I really meant to say this word, or the really funny part's coming up. That's what I like to do. So, Steve, what people are on the calendar? What shows are coming up?
Yeah, so I've actually got a few exciting things coming up. I think I'm most excited for. It's pretty much confirmed, so I think I can say it. I'm going to be doing an interview with Richard Bushman. That's scheduled for next week. He's somebody I've wanted to interview since the beginning of my channel, and he's agreed to it. And I think it's going to be a good episode. He is a lot older, so I don't think it'll be a super long interview. So I'm trying to think about asking him the best questions I can, but trying to be time efficient as well. But it's going to be centering around, Joseph Smith and church history and just getting his views on different things. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be probably one of my most important interviews as well. Other than that, I'm going to be continuing my series on temples and the temple endowment and Freemasonry. And there's a few scholars that I'm looking to interview, but I'm having to wait a little bit for them to get back to me. And then after that, I want to move on to like the Book of Abraham and prophetic fallibility, which are two enormous and non-controversial topics. But that'll probably be more the latter half of the year. So yeah, so I think some of that will be quite exciting. So people should look out for a Richard Bushman interview, hopefully coming out in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's one of the reasons I started watching Stephen Pinecker and his Mormon book reviews was because he got an interview with Richard Bushman, and I wasn't finding him coming on any of my other shows.
Yeah, no, because whenever I first reached out to Richard Bushman, he sort of implied that he'd been getting a lot of requests for podcasts, and he didn't want to do it at that time. And for some reason, he's been willing. Sometimes you just have to be persistent with people, not overly persistent that you're annoying, but give them a few months and then maybe try again, and then they might be willing.
So he's so hard up, he's kind of on your show, so I'm gonna have to invite him now.
just say I'm good friends with the Murph, and they're like,
that's right.
Murph is good. Any friend of the Murph is a friend of mine.
And I have one thing on you with Richard Bushman. I had breakfast with Richard and Claudia Bushman at the 2022 Mormon History Association, like welcome to new members breakfast that they have for the first timers. And so I made sure, I looked around the room, looked at the tables, and I made sure to sit next to Richard and Claudia Bushman. I think I had to tell somebody, oh, there's a phone call for you. And so they got up and then I took their seat. No, I didn't do that. But let's see. Have you interviewed Matthew Harris at all yet?
No.
So he's a scholar. He's a professor at Colorado State or something like that. I can't remember which one. And he has a new book coming out called Second Class Saints.
Okay. It's about the priesthood ban and
it talks about Black Mormons and the struggle for racial equality. And he's going to have a lot of
essays, didn't he? I think so. He'd be someone great for me whenever I get onto that topic to interview.
Yeah, he has lots of insight on the gospel topic essays he edited with Newell Bringhurst, and I think he also might have had a chapter that he published in that as well, or he and Newell together. So yeah, that's a good book. That was one of the first books I bought, I think, when I started, because I had never heard of the gospel topics essays until COVID, where I got a chance to study more things.
Right.
So anyway, I was going to say that this book it's not out yet. So it's my first book that I got from the publisher pre-publication. Have you ever done that? Have you ever gotten a book from a publisher?
I'm not that special.
So there you go. So I looked into it. I wasn't asking for it. I just said, hey, will you come on my show? And I knew he was going to do a book. And he goes, oh, okay. And then he copied his publicist and he says, give me your address and I'll have my publisher send you a copy. I was like, dang it, now I'm going to have to read something. But anyway.
Yeah. The downside is if you book a lot of guests that you want to interview, but then you're like, oh, I'll promote your book and read it. Sometimes you're like, oh, crap, I've only got like 2 weeks to read this book. And you're just like trying to go through it so fast. But no.
And, I thought I would do a little quick preview of it because yesterday actually was the 46th on June 8th, I'll say, because who knows when I publish this, right? On June 8th, recently, was the 46th anniversary of the announcement of the revelation on the priesthood. It was received, I believe, according to the church, on June 1st, and then they made the press release and the public announcement on June 8th. So I thought I would do a little quick announcement that I'm going to have the author on soon, and I only got like 50 views. I don't know if I have to do something better or, promote it more. So anyhow, try to find out who's printing a book, who's getting a book published, and just hint that you'd like to help them promote it. And maybe they will
we'll send you the book.
Have the publisher send a book. I know like Steve Pinecker brags, but he talks about how he gets a lot of books that way it's right in his title that he's Mormon Book Review. So people are going to, send him books. And that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Steve, for being on our show again. And maybe after your Richard Bushman visit, I'll get him on our show and then we'll compare notes and see. We'll see. It'll be a challenge to see who does a better job. How about that?
No, let's do it.
So anyway, thanks a lot for being on the show. Everybody like and subscribe, and have a great summer. Bye-bye.